I was born in Kent, Ashford, Kent,
Okay.
but I grew up in Merseyside, in Birkenhead. No, my father came over in '54 and then worked a cello for a year, and then the family came over a year later in '55. And we lived in East Vancouver for about 6 months and then bought a house in Burnaby. Yes, well, I was severely asthmatic as a kid, and my parents, the doctor recommended putting me in swimming. And so I joined the Vancouver Amateur Swim Club downtown and swam there for 3 years. And then when Burnaby finally opened a pool, joined the Burnaby Thais later when I was 14 or 15. The Coquitlam Sharks piece comes in that same year as I was playing at SFU. I was a swim coach, and they opened a new indoor pool in Coquitlam, and it was advertised that one of the lifeguards they had hired wanted to start a water polo club. So I went to that first meeting along with a number of kids who swam for the Coquitlam Sharks. And when we got to the first meeting, he announced that he had taken another job and was sorry about that, and hope we were able to still form a water polo club because it was a great sport. And all the kids who I coached at swimming said, well, you can do it. You're playing at SFU, you can coach. And I really didn't know much about coaching water polo at that time, but I would go to practice on at SFU on the Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then on Wednesday and Saturday, whatever I learned in practice, I would try and teach the young kids who I was working with at the time. Jim Wiltons must be, mentioned there, my mentor and my coach at SFU, who took me as a player in '74 down to play in California the first time and play Northern California, play teams there, and take us to win the Senior B championships in '74. And he was the one who sort of said to me, pulled me aside and said, this is my last year, I'm going to go and do my PhD in Hawaii. He was doing his master's in marine biology at SFU. And he said, I don't know what your aspirations are as a player. He said, but, you're going to make a good coach. And so would you like me to mentor you and take some time with you? My background at that time was basically sort of what was happening in the U.S. in terms of my coaching, my terminology. Everything was based on what I learned from an American player and coach who played on the senior B team for the U.S. and played for Cal Berkeley. And so I didn't know much about water polo Canada and its hierarchy other than playing in my first championships in Ottawa in '74. It wasn't that there was not a lot of respect. It was sort of nobody even noticed we were there until we won. The first game we played against Quebec, who were really the team to beat the number one seed, we beat them 6-2, and nobody seemed to notice. We went through the tournament undefeated and actually beat the Hamilton team, who were the defending champions at that time, playing man down for half a game. And everyone was sort of shocked, and nobody said anything other than sort of, oh, okay, congratulations. And when we came back the next year, everyone seemed a little more, not respectful, but wary of our talents. And some people were very friendly and some weren't. Yes, we've always had a north-south influence because of it. And the people in California, Jim Wiltons and particularly Peter Catino, were so good to us and always set up competition that was appropriate for us, helped us get ready for the national championships, and sort of our players came from a swimming background. And so moving towards a counterattack style of water polo actually made sense for the feeder system that we had, for our players. We were always fast. I can remember playing on the SFU team at one time when I was a senior, and 5 people in the pool had held the Canadian record for the 50 free. I was very surprised when he called me in '87 and said he'd like me to be on the coaching staff. Shocked would be the word rather than surprised. Shocked. And I said, why me? And he said, because you're everything I'm not. And I need to have a balanced team to succeed with a group of veterans. His idea was to take older players and put some of them back together again for a run towards '88 in the Seoul Olympics. And so I thought about it for a while and said, well, he was definitely big enough and honest enough to answer the question. So I said, okay, I'll go for it. And it was the beginning of a great friendship. I have a lot of respect for George, his coaching ability, his honesty, brutal sometimes, and his loyalty to his team, and particularly to Canada. Well, it's interesting. I happened upon coaching women just because when I had returned to offer my services to coach again, all the positions were available for our club, Civic Storm, and there would be, at that time, it would be juvenile or youth men, youth women, cadet women, and cadet men. And so they asked me, deferred to me, and say, what would I like? And I said, you guys choose. I'd be happy with it, and I'm happy to come back and help the club out, whatever. And so I ended up coaching with James Gardner on the women's side of it, which was it was a good time in my life to do that because I had daughters at the same age. And it wasn't a big leap for me to understand the culture, although that in itself was an education. And again, I ended up with another very talented group of girls who won, I think, 3 or 4 youth championships together and a cadet championship with, players like Monica Eggins and Carmen Eggins, Athena Vaseos, the Campbell sisters, a very, very talented group. And so there was a lot of success there, but it was a big learning curve, too. Our first championship in 1976, we had a player kicked out in the third quarter, early in the third quarter against Hamilton, and we were I think winning 3-2 at that time. And after the quarter was over, our captain ran down to yell at the Hamilton team about a success, but he was a quarter early. There was still a quarter left to go in the game. He's down yelling, we have to call him back, saying, Mike, the game's not over. And another good one was, I believe, yes, it would be 77 the next year. Our plane got stopped in Montreal. It was a regular stopover, and they bumped people off the flight. And our flight was just timed to make it just to our game in Quebec City. And so I had to negotiate with the people at the front desk to change the seat so my starting 7 could go on the earlier flight, and we would go on the flight an hour later. So the subs and myself arrived at the pool in the middle of the second period, and the group at that time were kind of desperate for a sub. And the subs all jumped in, and it was, again, another happy ending, another championship for us. But we were a little freaked out about the fact that we were getting bumped off the flight and we're going to miss our first game at the national championships and possibly a chance to win.